When someone quits trading, it's not usually in a dramatic way. They don't slam their laptop shut and declare they're done forever. It's quieter than that. It's slower. It starts with hesitation, then it turns into avoidance. You stop journaling, you stop backtesting, you stop trusting your own decisions. Eventually, you stop placing trades altogether, but you still watch the market. And that's the part nobody talks about when you're not fully in, but you're not fully out either. You're just stuck. I've been there. I don't say that lightly or casually. I don't mean one bad week or a drawdown that bruised my ego. I mean the kind of phase where you wake up already tired of the market, where even opening your platform feels like work you don't want to do anymore, where you start questioning whether all the time you've already put in was a mistake. And what makes it worse is that you're not new anymore. Beginners have hope. You have history. And that history is loud. It's filled with trades you should have taken and didn't. Trades you shouldn't have taken and did. Days you followed your plan perfectly and still lost. Days you broke every rule and somehow won, which messes with your head even more. Over time, all of that stacks up, and it creates this internal noise that never shuts off. You're not just trading price anymore, you're trading your memory. If that hits close to home, hit the like button right now. Not because it helps the algorithm, but because it's a small way of saying, yeah, this is me. And if you've ever thought about quitting but didn't tell anyone, drop a comment that just says, still here. You don't have to explain yourself. One of the biggest lies about trading is that quitting happens because people don't have the right strategy. That's the clean version of the story. It's easy to explain, it's easy to sell solutions around, but it's not true for most people watching this video. You already have a strategy, or at least you've had several. You know what a good setup looks like. You know what you're supposed to wait for. The problem isn't ignorance anymore. The problem is friction. At some point, trading stops feeling like progress and starts feeling like resistance. Every decision feels heavier than it should. Every loss feels personal. Every win feels suspicious. You're not excited when you make money, you're relieved. And that's a dangerous place to be mentally because relief doesn't build confidence. It just temporarily reduces pain. I remember a period where I would close trades and immediately calculate how many more wins I needed just to get back to even. Not to get ahead, not to feel successful, just to erase the damage. And when you start thinking like that, trading becomes emotional debt repayment instead of execution. You're no longer focused on what's in front of you, you're trying to fix what's behind you. Let me tell you about someone I spoke to not long ago. We'll call him Mike. Not his real name, but the story is real. Mike had passed evaluations before. He wasn't new. He knew risk management. He knew his setup. But he came to me after blowing another account and said something that stuck with me. He said, I don't even feel mad anymore. I just feel tired. That sentence tells you everything. Tired traders don't need more indicators. They don't need another YouTube playlist. They don't need someone yelling motivation at them. They need clarity. They need someone to explain why this phase feels the way it does. Because right now it feels like failure even when it's not. The moment you start thinking about quitting is often the moment trading stops being theoretical and starts being real. In the beginning, everything is exciting because nothing has weight yet. Losses don't mean much. Wins feel huge. You haven't built expectations, so you can't disappoint yourself. But once you've been in long enough, once you've invested real time, real money, real identity into this, the game changes. Now it matters. And when something matters, it starts pushing back. A lot of traders don't quit because they're bad. They quit because trading starts demanding emotional consistency, not just technical skill. It demands that you show up the same way on a good day and a bad day. It demands patience when nothing is happening and restraint when everything is moving. That's not a skill you learn from charts. That's a skill you develop under pressure. If you're still watching at this point, subscribe to the channel. Not because I'm promising shortcuts or secrets, but because this channel is for traders who want to understand what's actually happening beneath the surface. And if you've ever felt like nobody talks about this side of trading, you're in the right place. If you're about to quit, ask yourself this honestly. Are you quitting because trading doesn't work? Or because you're exhausted from trying to force it to work faster than it can? Those two things feel the same emotionally, but they are very different realities. I've seen traders walk away right before everything stabilized, not because they were close to some magical breakthrough, but because they were finally starting to see themselves clearly, their habits, their patterns, their emotional leaks. And that awareness is uncomfortable. It strips away excuses. It forces accountability. And a lot of people mistake that discomfort for failure. From the outside, quitting looks like self-respect. From the inside, it often feels like relief mixed with regret. You tell yourself you'll come back later, when things are better, when you're more confident, when you have more capital. But later turns into months, and months turn into years, and the market keeps moving without you. Not because you couldn't do it, but because you never gave yourself permission to go through the hardest part without judging yourself. There's a moment every serious trader hits where the question shifts. It's no longer, can I make money doing this? It becomes, can I handle who I am when I'm doing this? And that question is terrifying if you're not ready for it, because trading has a way of exposing impatience, ego, fear, and inconsistency faster than almost anything else. I've watched traders who were killers in their careers fall apart in the market, and I've watched quiet, methodical people slowly build something solid. The difference wasn't intelligence, it wasn't background. It was their relationship with discomfort. If you're about to quit, there's a good chance you're not running from trading. You're running from the version of yourself that trading is showing you. And that's not weakness. That's awareness arriving before you've decided what to do with it. Let me speak to the third perspective now. The observer, the friend watching you from the outside. They don't see someone who failed. They see someone who tried longer than most. They see someone who didn't give up after the first loss, or the second, or the 10th. They see someone who kept showing up even when it stopped being fun. And if they knew how close you were to quitting right now, they wouldn't say, yeah, you should stop. They'd probably say, you're closer than you think, even if it doesn't feel like it. And that's the cruel part of this phase. Feeling far when you're actually deep. Feeling lost when you've just outgrown old expectations. Feeling broken when you're actually being rebuilt. If this resonates, share this video with someone who's been quiet about trading lately. You know the one. The friend who used to talk about setups and now never brings it up. Sometimes people don't need advice. They need to feel understood. We're just getting started. In the next chapter, I'm going to break down what this quitting phase actually is, why it shows up when it does, and why almost nobody warns you about it ahead of time. Not in a motivational way, in a real grounded way that makes sense of what you're experiencing right now. Stay with me. Chapter 2. There's a reason nobody warns you about this part of trading, and it's not because it's rare. It's because it's uncomfortable to explain. It doesn't sound sexy, it doesn't sell well, and most people who make content either never stayed in the game long enough to experience it, or they moved past it and forgot what it actually felt like when they were inside it. This phase doesn't show up at the beginning. In the beginning, everything feels possible. You're fueled by potential. You haven't been humbled yet. Losses feel temporary. Wins feel validating. Even mistakes feel educational. You're optimistic because you haven't paid the full price yet. That comes later. This phase shows up after you've put in enough work to know better, but not enough time to feel secure. You're no longer guessing, but you're not confident either. You understand the market just enough to realize how much control you don't actually have. And that awareness hits hard. A lot of traders think they're losing confidence when this happens. They're not. They're losing illusions. And illusions are comfortable. They make effort feel rewarding, even when results aren't there yet. Once those illusions start fading, effort feels heavier, because now you know results aren't guaranteed just because you tried hard. I remember sitting in front of my charts during this phase and thinking, I know what I'm supposed to do, so why does it feel harder than ever to actually do it? That question haunted me for a long time. Because on paper, I was improving. My strategy was cleaner. My risk management was tighter. My understanding was deeper. But emotionally, I felt worse than when I started. That's when a lot of traders start thinking something is wrong with them. They start saying things like, maybe I'm just not built for this. Or maybe everyone else has something I don't. Or the most dangerous one, if I was really meant to be profitable, it would have happened by now. That thought doesn't sound dramatic, but it quietly kills momentum. If you've ever caught yourself thinking that, pause for a second and like this video. Not because it fixes anything, but because it's a way of interrupting that loop. You're not broken. You're early in a process that doesn't reward emotional honesty the way other skills do. At some point, trading stops being about learning rules and starts being about managing yourself inside those rules. That's where most people get blindsided. You can learn a setup in a weekend, you can understand risk in a spreadsheet, but you can't shortcut emotional exposure. You can't simulate what it feels like to take the same setup 5 times in a row and lose. You can't backtest what it feels like to finally be up then give it back because you hesitated or overreacted. Those experiences don't just teach you about trading, they teach you about you, and most people aren't prepared for that mirror. I had a conversation with someone who had been trading for a couple of years. Solid understanding, clean charts, no random indicators. He told me something that stuck. He said, I feel like I'm doing everything right, but I don't trust myself anymore. That's not a strategy issue, that's internal whiplash. What happens is this. Early on, you trust the strategy because you don't know enough to doubt it. Later, you start doubting yourself because you know exactly how many ways things can go wrong. You've seen it, you've lived it. And that knowledge makes every decision feel heavier than it should. From the outside, people think quitting trading is about money. But from the inside, it's usually about identity. You start asking yourself what it means if you can't figure this out, especially if you're someone who's always figured things out, especially if you're disciplined in other areas of your life. Trading has a way of humbling people who aren't used to being humbled. Someone watching a trader go through this, I once watched a close friend slowly detach from trading. He didn't announce it. He didn't complain. He just stopped talking about it. He used to light up when markets opened. He used to send charts, talk ideas, debate levels. Then one day, nothing. When I asked him about it, he shrugged and said, I just don't think it's for me. But I knew that wasn't true. What he meant was, I don't like who I feel like when I'm trying and not getting rewarded. That distinction matters because trading doesn't just test patience, it tests self-trust. And when self-trust erodes, everything feels unstable. You second-guess entries, you hesitate on exits, you move stops not because it's logical, but because you're trying to protect yourself from feeling stupid again. That's the real danger of this phase. Not losses, not drawdowns. It's the quiet breakdown of decision-making confidence. If you're still here watching this, comment something honest, not motivational, not polished. Just something like, this feels familiar. You'd be surprised how many traders are in this exact spot right now, but think they're alone. Early in trading, responsibility is external. The market moved weird. News came out, spread widened. Later on, responsibility becomes internal. You know when you broke your rules, you know when you chased, you know when you hesitated, and that awareness is heavy. It's easier to fail when you don't fully understand why. It's much harder to fail when you know exactly what you did wrong, but still can't seem to stop doing it consistently. That gap between knowing and doing is where frustration lives. This is usually when traders go hunting again. New strategies, new indicators, new mentors, not because the old ones didn't work, but because they're trying to escape the discomfort of mastery. Mastery is boring. It's repetitive. It demands consistency without excitement. And excitement is what got most people into trading in the first place. If trading still feels exciting all the time, you probably haven't been doing it long enough. Excitement fades. What replaces it is focus, or frustration, depending on how you respond. The reason this phase feels like a dead end is because there's no external reward for pushing through it. Nobody applauds discipline. Nobody sees the trades you didn't take. Nobody feels the restraint it took to follow your plan after 3 losses in a row. The only person who knows is you. And if you're not grounded, that silence can feel like failure. If you're about to quit, ask yourself something uncomfortable. Are you tired of trading, or are you tired of feeling exposed by it? Those are not the same thing. One means it's time to walk away. The other means you're standing at a door you've never been through before. There's a reason this phase feels lonely. Most people don't talk about it publicly because it doesn't make for good highlight reels. It's not dramatic enough to vent about, but it's painful enough to wear you down. You're not crashing, you're grinding. And grinding without validation is where most people tap out. If this video is helping you make sense of what you're feeling, subscribe. Not as a promise, but as a reminder. A reminder that you're not crazy and you're not the only one navigating this. In the next chapter, I'm going to talk about why quitting at this stage feels logical, even when it's not, and how to tell the difference between a healthy break and a fear-based exit. Because there is a difference, and confusing the two is how people walk away from something they were actually capable of doing. Stay here, we're going deeper next. Chapter 3, there's a moment where quitting trading starts to feel rational, calm even, not emotional, not dramatic. You tell yourself you're being mature about it. Logical, you say things like, I've given this enough time, or I don't want to keep forcing something that isn't working. And on the surface, that sounds healthy. It sounds like self-awareness. But sometimes it's something else wearing a smart disguise. Sometimes it's fear dressed up as clarity. This is the hardest part to talk about because I'm not here to tell you to never quit. That would be irresponsible. Some people genuinely should walk away. Some people are trading for the wrong reasons. Some people are forcing something they don't even enjoy. But that's not who this video is for. This video is for the person who doesn't want to quit, but feels like they might have to, just to get some peace back. That difference matters. I remember the first time quitting felt reasonable to me. Not emotional, not angry, just quiet. I looked at my results. I looked at the time invested. I looked at how much mental space trading was taking up, and I thought, if I walk away now, nobody would blame me. That thought is dangerous because it removes resistance. It makes quitting feel like relief instead of loss. And relief is seductive. The brain loves relief more than progress. Relief ends discomfort immediately. Progress doesn't. Progress asks you to tolerate uncertainty a little longer, to stay exposed a little longer, to not know how it ends yet. That's uncomfortable, and relief says, you don't have to feel this anymore. So when you're exhausted, relief sounds like wisdom. This is where a lot of traders make a decision that feels right in the moment, but echoes later. Not because they should have forced themselves to trade forever, but because they never separated exhaustion from truth. They assumed the desire to stop meant the thing itself was wrong. Someone who did quit. We'll call her Sarah. She had been trading for a few years, not reckless, not impulsive. She was consistent, careful, methodical. But she hit a long stretch where nothing seemed to click. No big blowups, just slow erosion. And one day she decided to step away. No drama. She deleted the platform, told herself she was done. Months later, she told me something that stuck. She said, I don't miss trading. I miss who I thought I was becoming. That sentence hits hard because it reveals something most people don't realize until after they quit. Sometimes what hurts isn't the market. It's the unfinished version of yourself you leave behind. The person watching someone almost quit. From the outside, it often looks premature. You see someone who finally has structure, finally has discipline, finally understands risk. And then suddenly they're talking about walking away. It feels confusing. Because from the outside, it looks like progress. From the inside, it feels like pressure. Here's the thing nobody prepares you for. The closer you get to consistency, the more responsibility you feel. Early on, losses are disappointing. Later, losses feel like evidence. Evidence that you should know better. Evidence that maybe you're not as disciplined as you thought. Evidence that the margin for error is shrinking. That pressure doesn't mean you're failing. It means the game is getting real. If this is hitting close to home, like the video right now, not as encouragement, but as acknowledgement. You're not weak for feeling this way. You're responding normally to an abnormal level of self-scrutiny. One of the biggest traps at this stage is confusing emotional fatigue with misalignment. Emotional fatigue says, I'm tired of carrying this. Misalignment says, this doesn't belong in my life. Those two sentences feel similar, but they lead to very different outcomes. Fatigue passes when pressure changes. Misalignment doesn't. The problem is, most traders never change the pressure. They keep trying to trade the same way, with the same expectations, with the same internal dialogue, and then wonder why they're burning out. They assume quitting is the only way to stop the pain. It's not, but it is the fastest. There's another layer here that's uncomfortable to admit. Pride, not ego. Pride in the sense of identity. When you've told people you're a trader, when you've invested years into this, quitting feels like erasing a version of yourself. And the longer you stay in, the heavier that decision becomes. That's why people stall. They don't quit. They don't commit. They hover, they half trade, they half care. And that limbo is often worse than either extreme. It drains energy without providing clarity. If you've been stuck in that middle ground, share this video with someone you trust. Not for advice, just for understanding. Sometimes naming the phase you're in is the first step out of it. I want to talk directly to you again. If you're about to quit, ask yourself one honest question. If trading suddenly became emotionally neutral tomorrow, would you still want to do it? Not exciting, not stressful, just neutral. If the answer is yes, you're probably not misaligned. You're overloaded. Overloaded traders don't need to quit. They need to simplify. They need to remove noise. They need to stop measuring themselves against imaginary timelines. They need to rebuild trust with themselves instead of chasing confidence. Confidence doesn't come back because you made money. It comes back because you did what you said you would do. Over and over. Even when nobody was watching. Especially when nobody was watching. There's a version of you that can handle trading calmly. Not because you're tougher, but because you're clearer. That version doesn't rush, doesn't force trades, doesn't need every day to be profitable. That version exists, but you don't reach it by fighting harder. You reach it by changing how you relate to the process. Most people quit right before that shift, because the old way stops working and the new way hasn't clicked yet. That in between feels like failure, but it's actually transition. If this is helping you reframe what you're feeling, subscribe to the channel. Not for motivation, but for perspective. Perspective is what keeps people from making permanent decisions based on temporary states. In the next chapter, I'm going to talk about what actually changes when traders push through this phase the right way. Not results, not income. Internals. How decision-making stabilizes, how pressure drops, how the market starts feeling quieter instead of louder. Chapter 4. Something subtle changes when a trader doesn't quit, but also doesn't keep forcing things the same way. It's not a breakthrough moment. There's no big realization where everything suddenly clicks. What changes first is the noise level. The market starts sounding quieter. Not because price is doing less, but because you are. I remember the exact point when this happened for me, and it wasn't after a big win. It was after a trade I didn't take. A clean setup. Perfect conditions. And I passed on it because something in me said it wasn't mine. Old me would have forced it just to feel involved. But this time, I let it go. And nothing bad happened. No regret, no spiraling, just calm. That calm wasn't confidence. It was trust beginning to return. Most traders think trust comes from winning. It doesn't. Winning can actually delay trust because it excuses bad behavior. Trust comes from restraint, from consistency, from knowing you can follow your own rules even when it costs you opportunity in the short term. This is the phase people never talk about because it doesn't look impressive. You're not trading more. You're trading less. You're not excited. You're focused. You stop checking your P&L every 5 minutes. You stop narrating every tick in your head. You start letting trades breathe. And most importantly, you stop trying to prove anything. From the outside, it might look like you've lost ambition. From the inside, it feels like you've regained control. Let me tell you about another trader I watched go through this shift. He didn't suddenly become profitable overnight. His equity curve didn't skyrocket. What changed was his behavior. He stopped reacting. Losses didn't send him spiraling. Wins didn't inflate his ego. He became boring, and boring traders survive. The market doesn't reward excitement. It punishes it. It rewards people who can stay emotionally flat while money is on the line. That sounds simple until you realize how unnatural it is. If you're still watching this, like the video right now, not because it's inspiring, but because you recognize the version of yourself you want to become, the one who isn't constantly at war with their own mind. Here's the part that surprises most traders. When this internal shift happens, results often lag. You don't immediately see improvement in your account, and that's frustrating because you feel like you're finally doing things right. This is where patience gets tested in a different way. Earlier, patience meant waiting for setups. Now, patience means waiting for alignment between behavior and outcomes. This is where many traders get impatient again. They say, I've changed how I trade, so why isn't it showing up yet? But internal changes always lead external ones. Always. The market doesn't care that you're calmer now. It responds to consistency over time. What if the thing you're waiting for isn't a winning streak, but proof that you can stay steady even when nothing is happening? What if that's the real threshold? Because once you cross that threshold, trading stops feeling like survival. It becomes execution. You stop waking up wondering how the day will go. You already know how you'll respond, regardless of what happens. That's freedom most traders never reach, not because they aren't capable, but because they quit when the work turns internal. There's a story I rarely tell. There was a period where my results were flat for months. Not losing, not winning, just flat. Old me would have panicked, would have changed something, would have chased a spark. But this time I didn't. I kept showing up the same way. Same process, same rules, same expectations. And slowly, without drama, things stabilized. Losses became smaller. Wins became cleaner. Drawdowns shortened. Not because the market changed, but because I stopped interfering. That's the irony of trading. The less you try to control outcomes, the more consistent they become. From the observer's perspective, this phase often looks boring. Friends might ask why you don't talk about trading as much, why you're less animated, why you're not chasing the next big thing. They don't see the work happening internally, they don't see the discipline forming, but you feel it. You feel lighter, more grounded, less reactive. If you've ever wondered what profitable traders actually feel like day to day, it's not excitement. It's neutrality, calm, focus. They don't feel special, they feel stable. And stability is earned, not learned. If this video is helping you reframe what success in trading actually looks like, subscribe. This channel isn't about hype cycles. It's about longevity. And longevity requires a different mindset than most people are taught. We're almost there. In the final chapter, I'm going to talk to you directly about what to do if you're standing at the edge right now. Not rules, not steps, but how to decide without lying to yourself, how to pause without quitting, how to walk forward without forcing belief you don't have yet. Stay with me. One more chapter. Chapter 5. If you're still here, still listening, that already tells me something important about you. People who are truly done don't sit through conversations like this. They don't lean into discomfort. They don't stay curious when it would be easier to shut the door. The fact that you're here means some part of you isn't ready to walk away yet, even if another part of you is exhausted. That tension matters. Right now, you're probably standing at what feels like an edge, not a dramatic edge, not a breaking point, just a quiet one. The kind where you're asking yourself whether continuing is brave or foolish, whether stopping is self-respect or self-sabotage. And the hardest part is that nobody else can answer that for you. But you can answer it honestly if you slow down enough. One of the biggest mistakes traders make at this point is thinking they have to decide everything right now. Quit forever or push harder. All in or all out. That binary thinking creates pressure that doesn't need to exist. You're allowed to pause without quitting. You're allowed to step back without erasing everything you've built. The market isn't going anywhere, and if something has been taking more from you than it's giving lately, it's okay to adjust how you engage with it. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're paying attention. What matters is why you're adjusting. Are you creating space to recover and recalibrate, or are you running because you're afraid of staying uncomfortable a little longer? Those two choices feel the same on the surface, but they come from very different places. I've seen traders who quit in anger come back years later with regret. And I've seen traders who paused intentionally return calmer, clearer, and far more effective. The difference wasn't time away, it was intention. If you're about to quit, ask yourself this without judgment. If you walked away today, would you feel relief or emptiness tomorrow? Relief can be healthy. Emptiness usually means something was left unfinished. That unfinished feeling isn't about money, it's about identity. About knowing you didn't give up because you couldn't do it, but because you chose something else consciously. Most people don't quit trading cleanly. They drift away while carrying doubt with them. That doubt follows them into whatever comes next. You don't want that. Here's something nobody tells traders. You don't need belief right now. You don't need motivation. You don't need confidence. You need honesty. You need to be honest about your energy, your expectations, and your capacity in this season of your life. There were times I kept trading when I should have stepped back. And there were times I thought about stepping back when what I really needed was to simplify, not stop. Those distinctions only became clear when I stopped asking what I should do and started asking how I was actually showing up. If you're constantly forcing yourself to trade, you're not building discipline. You're building resentment. And resentment eventually poisons everything. Discipline feels calm. Forced effort feels heavy. If this video has helped you put words to something you've been carrying silently, like the video right now. Not for me, for you. It's a small marker, a moment of acknowledgement that this phase isn't invisible anymore. If someone was watching you from the outside, really watching, they wouldn't see someone failing. They'd see someone wrestling with something that actually matters to them. Most people never do that. They quit early or never start at all. Struggling doesn't mean you're behind. It means you stayed in long enough for it to get real. There's no trophy for that. No applause, just self-respect. If you decide to keep going, do it differently. Lighter, quieter, with fewer expectations and more presence. Trade less, think less, observe more. Let your process become smaller and more repeatable. You don't need to conquer the market. You need to stop fighting yourself inside it. If you decide to step away, do it cleanly. Don't tell yourself stories about coming back someday if you know you won't. Don't frame it as failure. Frame it as a choice. And if you do come back later, come back as someone who understands themselves better, not as someone chasing redemption. Either way, don't make the decision from a place of exhaustion. Exhaustion lies. It tells you everything is heavier than it actually is. If you're still unsure, pause. Not for a day, not for a week. Pause with intention. Reduce risk, reduce frequency, reduce noise. Let your nervous system catch up to your knowledge. Clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from space. If this channel has helped you feel less alone in this process, subscribe. Not because I have answers, but because we're having the conversations most traders never hear until it's too late. And if you're still here at the end of this video, comment something simple, something honest, even just still here. Not as a promise, as a truth. Whatever you decide next, make sure it's your decision. Not fears, not exhaustions, not comparisons. You're not behind. You're not broken. And you're not weak for questioning the path. Sometimes questioning is the work. And if you're about to quit trading, at least now you know exactly why you're standing where you are. That's not nothing.